hello. Hey Nigel, that was a really nice hello from you, but let's get into it. GTA 6 is going to be the biggest game launch in gaming history, and I want to discuss a few things that I think that have been sort of tickling my fancy a little bit. We all know by now that GTA 6 is not going to have a physical copy. I mean, you can go into a store and buy the actual case, but there's going to be a download code in there, which is a little bit bizarre. But I think all of this has been done on purpose, and let me explain why.
Oh boy, am I ready for this one.
So it doesn't take a genius to figure out that GTA 6 is going to be really huge. It's going to break records, it's going to set records, and I think it's going to go down as one of the best games ever created in the gaming industry. But the funny thing about this is that Sony already know this, and they've used this opportunity to sort of collab closely with Rockstar, saying that the best place to play GTA 6 is going to be on the PlayStation 5.
Xbox, anyone?
But if we dig in a little bit deeper, I think the story gets a little bit darker. Maybe Sony and Rockstar sat at a table and discussed a digital-only way forward. Think of it, from Sony's perspective, it will be the best time to push digital-only, especially with how much influence GTA 6 is going to have on the players. Sony doesn't need to force gamers to stop buying discs. Instead, the biggest games can gradually make discs feel unnecessary. If GTA 6 can sell tens of millions of digital copies, Sony gets an incredibly powerful real-world demonstration that physical media isn't essential to selling blockbuster console games anymore. And that might have triggered Sony to be like, you know what, let's go digital only. But the big question here is why? Why are they going to be taking away physical copies of all the other games coming out in the future and just go digital only? You can't say, oh, technology is changing, we're just going to be all digital, this, that. I think, again, there's a deeper meaning to this. So if we step away from GTA 6 and just talk about gaming in general for a second and ask what an all-digital future could mean for gaming, well, we'll stop owning games in the traditional sense, so obviously there won't be physical copies, as I just mentioned. So gone are the days of lining up at a store on release, buying something, playing it, keeping it for a little while, maybe trading it in, maybe swapping it with your friends. Everything is going to change here. So instead of buy, own, keep, it's more or less going to be buy, receive a license, then access through an account, which I personally think is the bridge to the famous saying, you'll own nothing and be happy.
Oh no, what a sad world we're going to be living in.
Yeah, I know, Nigel, things are going to be changing. And that sort of leads me on to our next point, where Sony gains greater control over pricing. See, with physical games, you could go into a shop and one shop may say it's £70, another shop may have it for £65, and a few months later it can drop to like £45 or something like that and be really competitive shop to shop. But if everything goes on the PlayStation Store, that means Sony will have full control over the digital pricing. Yes, we do have third-party platforms where we can buy grey keys and stuff like that, but it wouldn't surprise me if like Sony put on some sort of lock or some sort of ID lock where you can only buy digital games off the PlayStation Store. Now, when that does happen, well, what actually happens to physical game stores that we can actually go into? Because we've already seen big retailers here in UK like Game shrink from an actual storefront into like a little corner in Sports Direct. Now, if you're across the pond and you're an American and don't understand that, it's like the equivalent of maybe your GameStop shrinking and having a really small sort of corner in a sports shop or something like that. Well, what about game preservation as well? What do I mean? Well, look, if you've got a PS5 at home and say that you've got a PS1, well, if you've got the PS1, you've probably got some PlayStation 1 games lying around as well, the physical copies, obviously, because there was no digital stuff back then. You can just literally plug and play, right? Set up PlayStation 1, put the disc in, and job done. Well, what happens if everything's digital? Where would we be in 30 years' time? Could we still access our games that we've bought and continue on as normal? Because to be fair, there's nothing stopping Sony and the PlayStation Store just from shutting the whole shit down and just not giving us access. Look, we've seen this with different platforms as well. You've paid for a subscription and then they just literally take it off. And that sort of leads me to my next point naturally, and that's because of licensing or publishing issues as well. What happens if there are those issues? If we buy a £70 game right now, say we bought Call of Duty, what happens to that Call of Duty if they have a falling out with Sony and they sort of sign an exclusive agreement with Xbox, for example? What happens then? What happens to our money? Because clearly we're not going to get a refund for it. And not only that, what happens in 30 years if they shut down the servers? Because if everything is online and we need the PlayStation Store to access it and we need an account as well, what happens in 30 years then when they just decide to up and leave? What do we do? Do we get a refund? I don't think so. Companies don't like when they make a loss, so why would they refund us? Corporate greed is real, so we're just going to leave it there anyway. Now, it doesn't even need to be a licensing or publishing issue. What happens if they've got the music rights that expire? There's a lot of problems that can happen with digital only. Games should just go missing from the storefront at any time, while physical copies can keep circulating regardless. And a lot of people aren't even speaking about how important the internet will be, because obviously internet becomes the mandatory for purchasing games. So imagine GTA 6 being like 150 gig, maybe 200 gig. So when someone buys a code that's in a physical box, they're not installing it from the actual CD, they're actually downloading it For gamers with poor broadband, limited data and unreliable internet, well, that's a significant disadvantage as well. And the question arises, will we see an impact on internet providers? Will internet providers up their prices? Because that's literally how business works. If they're going to see an opportunity, that's what's going to happen. And then this is probably going to lead to the whole subscription thing getting pushed even more. You know, the thing that I was talking about where I said you'll own nothing and you'll be happy? Yeah, that sort of place.
I don't really like subscriptions.
So your PlayStation Plus or your Xbox equivalent subscriptions sort of become your go-to for gaming. And gaming gradually moves on from I bought my games to like, these are the games I currently have access to. Essentially Netflix for gaming. And what happens if you stop that subscription? Well, then you just lose access to all of your games. Again, more furious gamers. Oh God, we're going to be angry with that one. But as I mentioned before, corporate greed is real. And you know, it wouldn't surprise me if they don't really care about destroying our lives and how much we spend in the PlayStation Store or even Xbox. I don't know why Xbox is getting away with this. They're in the same damn boat because eventually they'll probably turn digital only as well. But look, I get it. From a business perspective, publishers and gaming companies can potentially make a lot more money. Digital distribution is extremely attractive commercially. There's no discs, no plastic cases, less physical distribution, no retailer taking the traditional physical retail margin, and most importantly, no secondhand sales. Because depending on how old you are, we all know that one rich friend that always used to buy the brand new games on release, and then we sort of have to wait for the hand-me-downs. I remember that back in my high school days. That was a very, very long time ago. But could you imagine when they cut out the middleman? That will mean that Rockstar and PlayStation, they get as much profits as possible. So again, I get it from a business perspective, but I hate that all my games are just going to be digital. That's kind of sucks. But look, in my opinion, it's not all negative. And hear me out on this one.
You're a traitor. Yeah, he's a backstabber. You're a traitor.
Whoa, Nigel, can you calm down, please? I get it. You absolutely hate digital only.
Yeah,
but look, I'm not a traitor, man.
Well, can you explain yourself then?
Look, digital can give us preloading, midnight releases, no change in discs, entire libraries available instantly, remote downloads, digital sales, and so much more. There are legitimate reasons gamers actually prefer it, believe it or not.
Yeah, I guess you got a point. I'm so sorry I spoke to you like that,
Yeah, it's
Manny.
cool, man. Don't worry. You don't need to apologize.
No, I really
seriously,
am.
it's cool.
I'm really sorry. You know, what kind of person does that and speaks to their best friend that way, you know?
You know I appreciate you, Nigel. And in that case, Nigel, you know how to finish this video off.
Oh, yeah. Subscribe. Yeah, I'm the Harmony Master.